everyone, and welcome back to Binge Battle. My name is Mark Ellis, and the book on Boba Fett is now closed. Well, the first book was. We got our chapters, we loved them, we debated them, and they were always trending on Twitter. And so what better topic to have today as we anticipate this Obi-Wan series coming out, the Book of Boba Fett just closing up shop. We are going to talk all things Boba Fett, and there will be some spirited competitive debate here with two great Star Wars minds. And I say that as that it applies to this galaxy or any other one. So fair warning, spoilers aplenty will be happening. If you've not seen the Book of Boba Fett or The Mandalorian or really anything in that galaxy far, far away, then you might want to go check some of that stuff out. Then come on back, because we're going to get deep into the chapters of the Book of Boba Fett. Thanks again for coming back to Binge Battle. For all of us here at Rotten Tomatoes, it is my pleasure to welcome our guest today. Up first, needs no introduction, especially if you've ever met him at a Comic-Con, because he is just one of those folks that knows things. And you can check out his YouTube channel, Heroes Reforged, where he does all sorts of reviews and reactions and just great content that seems like it's almost daily, or maybe that's just how I watch it. He is Adam Hlaváč. Adam, you are on the show for your very first time. Welcome, sir. And when we're talking about debuts, here's my question to you. When you were just a wee tyke and you were watching this Star Wars stuff for the first time, when you met Boba Fett on screen, what was your initial reaction? Do you remember it at all? Was he cool? Was he just unmemorable? Who was Boba Fett to you?
That's a great question. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I definitely thought you were teeing up Ken when you first started talking. In terms of Boba Fett, I remember seeing The Empire Strikes Back in theaters in 97 with the re-release. So I didn't know too much about Boba Fett before that, because that was my introduction to Star Wars. But I was definitely intrigued by the design of the character. And that seems to kind of be the catch-all answer for everyone, is the design was really, really cool. So that was my introduction. And then Return of the Jedi, he was so short-lived, but then I started jumping into the expanded universe and learning a little bit more about that character. And then as it was, you know, his history kind of became more solidified with the prequels. So it was really cool to kind of see this character who was kind of short-lived in the movies end up having sort of a second life in the prequels. And then we thought, oh, we'll probably never see this character again. And now we got this show. And then, you know, he showed up in The Mandalorian, spoilers, which I thought was a really, really cool way to reintroduce this character. So I've always had this like fondness and intrigue for this character. So I'm so happy that we got this show to give us even more context. And I hope that continues in the future.
A great answer. Unfortunately, I do have to dock you a point for having your first time seeing Star Wars being the re-releases. You know, we have young people on this
theatrical experience.
It was pretty great when I was in high school, going back to go see the re-releases. And so now you're going to know who I'm introducing now, Adam, because this next competitor and your opponent almost got into a Comic-Con party in 2016, and he's also a very funny comedian. He hosts Pop Rockin' Radio on Mixcloud, and he knows a thing or two about Star Wars as well, so you can check out his popular podcast, ForceCenter. He is a returning favorite to Binge Battle. Ken Napzok, you're back. Hello, sir. And your first introduction to Boba Fett, I think it might have taken place a little bit before Adam's.
Yeah. My dad hadn't even bought our family's first microwave yet. That's how long ago. Yeah, no, for me, it was Return of the Jedi. And again, Mark, happy to be back here debating my favorite California burrito buddy, Adam Hlaváč. Boba Fett for me was the guy tried to hurt my little Han and paid for it, as he should have, by being launched into the Sarlacc pit. That was my first introduction, seeing Jedi first and working my way back. So I always had a wonderful but yet interesting relationship with Boba Fett. The design was cool, but he was there for so long, for so short a time. And I like that, because you don't go after Luke and Han in my world when I was 7.
You know, Ken, the old comedian code that we have is you're supposed to leave them wanting more. And Boba Fett certainly did that in the classic trilogy. And I would even say in the prequels, we got to meet the daddy of Boba Fett and have some fun adventures. But then we just really saw Boba Fett holding that helmet. And then it was a nice nod to what we had already known. And where would it go from here? But the biggest question on everyone's lips when it came to Boba Fett is, did he survive the fall into the Sarlacc pit? Luke knocked him in there. Did he survive? Is it officially canon? We got a lot of cool looking trailers that were fan made. We got some novels and some comic books that may not have been canon when Disney bought in 2012, but now it was finally official that the Book of Boba Fett was happening, and thus he did get out of the Sarlacc pit. And wow, you want to talk about a claustrophobic scene, welcoming you to what the Sarlacc pit looks like from the inside. I don't think we would have made it out of there. But now we are here and we are debating. So here is how it works. Each competitor is going to get a minute opening statement about whatever topic I feel like bringing up first. And then once that happens, they'll have about a 30-second rebuttal period and then a 10-second closing statement. And then it is up to me to make a judgment between my two dear friends as to who had the better war waged in that particular topic round. So here we go with topic number one, and it is, which was the best episode, the best episode of the Book of Boba Fett? Ken Napzok, you have the first opening statement, a minute or less.
Boba Fett, nod to you, sir. My favorite episode, and therefore what I feel is the best, without a doubt, is Chapter 2, The Tribes of Tatooine, directed by Steph Green. Of course, Jon Favreau getting writing credit for all these episodes here, other than the one he split with Filoni. I love this episode because this whole series is about change. It's about growth. It's about someone trying to reconcile the trauma from his past. And to do that, you have to confront fear, which is big in Star Wars. The goals of the Jedi are to confront fear. Fear leads to anger, suffering, hate, all those things we've heard before. And Chapter 2 is about this big question of what do you fear? We spent a lot of time with the Tuskens, who know the land, who know Tatooine so well. They know what the dangers, the pitfalls of that land, but then they fear something that's an outsider, the Pikes, the interlopers, the train. Boba Fett helps them confront that, and then they in turn help him confront and come to terms with his trauma, his past, what he's going through, his identity. He's a son of Jango Fett. He became a bounty hunter because of his father, perhaps, but he was rudderless. Some of the best Boba Fett content is the Clone Wars, when he's a youngster with Cad Bane and Aurra Sing taking him under his wing. But he has to confront all that trauma there as well. Is he a clone? Is he a Mandalorian? Is he a son of Jango? Who is he? He has great fear from all of that stuff. And that episode is about that big question. What do you fear? And then therefore, how can you overcome it? It has some of the most beautiful stuff with the Tuskens that moved a lot of people. There's a lot of passions around what happened to the Tuskens after. Totally understandable, different kind of debate. But I think that episode was just beautiful, bold, and different for Star Wars thus far.
Yeah, some uprising, some emotional. You really got the feels in that episode. And I don't think that after the show, I'm ever going to go back to people like Obi-Wan and call them Sand People again. They're Tusken Raiders. And now we go to Adam for your opening statement. Ken took Chapter 2. What says Mr. Hlaváč?
I went with Chapter 6, From the Desert Comes a Stranger. This is the Dave Filoni directed, co-written with Jon Favreau episode. And the big reason why I picked this one was I know that the immediate sort of reaction from people is going to be like, well, it's the one that has Boba Fett probably in it the least. But the thing for me that made it such an impactful episode was the fact that it is culminating so many different eras of Star Wars and so many different parts of such a vast universe, and it worked so flawlessly. And I know Dave Filoni is someone who is so passionate about the entire universe, and you feel that from every single scene going through, from Mando to then the huge revelations of Luke and Grogu, Ahsoka, and it's tying in all these things so beautifully. And I think for me, what it does is that it brings so much anticipation for what the finale is going to be. And it raises so many questions. It also raises the stakes tremendously, because now you're seeing the inner workings of the Pike Syndicate. You're seeing the inner workings of what it means when you try to go against the Pike Syndicate, and the integration of someone like Cad Bane, a character who, if you've been following Star Wars for the last 15, 16, 20 years almost, that is a character that you've come to know through Clone Wars, who's then referenced in so many other different things. So to finally see all those things come to fruition and come on screen, and to see characters sharing those sequences together, you bring your personal emotion to it, but also the anticipation. And even if you don't know those characters as well, the way that Dave Filoni crafts that episode and the intensity that you feel between Cad Bane and the Marshal Cobb Vanth, and just how it elevates and escalates from scene to scene to scene, it just makes it that much more anticipated for the finale. And I feel like without that piece, there is no way for the finale to really work. Yes, you have plenty of other things that happen beforehand, but this is really the centerpiece of the season, that if these things don't come together flawlessly and you're not out of breath by the end of the episode, you're going into the finale and the anticipation just isn't as high.
I'm just excited to rewatch this show now. You talk about Adam being a staple at conventions. Dave Filoni, when he's wearing that fedora, that is a really fun guy to talk Star Wars with. So Ken, we go back to you, and as a great catcher for the evil empire once said, when there's a fork in the road, take the fork. You have a fork in the road, sir. You have a rebuttal. You can either continue your argument with Chapter 2, why it's great, or you can maybe throw some barbs Adam's way and say, this is why 2 is better than 6.
I love celebrating Star Wars, not tearing it down. Adam's choice is wonderful. You can't go wrong. Cad Bane's one of my favorite characters. I just love big themes in Star Wars, and I love how you connect. I keep talking about the fear one there, but some of the beautiful stuff with the Tusken Raiders. And you're right, I call them the Tuskens of the Dune Sea now. I feel guilty calling them anything but that. It was something that's, I think, very powerful in Star Wars. That mix of, we always say in ForceCenter, Joseph and I, we love this idea of Star Wars being about generational change, taking what is old and combining it with new and just adding, recontextualizing things. And the Tusken Raider stuff is so beautiful. It gets into their culture, gets into how it affects its cultural exchange. It's Boba Fett learning this big concept of I can't go alone anymore, the importance of a tribe. And it was something bold and different for Star Wars at that time, and taking something we grew up with, Boba Fett. We're taking Boba Fett and changing him, but now it's taking something that we grew up with for a long time, our views of the Tuskens, views of Tatooine. I always say you go back to Tatooine to learn more about Star Wars. And every time you check in on Tatooine, you're learning something new about this franchise you fell in love with. And so I think that's why it was something bold. And that vision, everything at the end with the wood and Boba Fett kind of connecting with his weapon later on, I think it sets up a lot of the big core themes for the show. So I'll stand behind chapter 2 and not tear down chapter 6.
All right. Well, I am with Ken. Give us all the sandy planets, Star Wars, Dune, Spaceballs. I will comb the desert. And now Adam's turn to comb for episode 6 or against episode 2. 30 seconds.
Is there a world where I can mix and match both?
Have at it, sir.
Tear and build.
Well, I would say the one thing that is, and I hate saying it only because I do agree that episode 2 is really good, but I feel like the only thing that kind of takes away from that is the fact that by the end of the season, we never really address any of that stuff ever again. And that to me is one of the things that's one of the low points of the show, which is a bummer. And I think with episode 6, what it does is that it's able to take everything that it introduces and it sets up Grogu's future. It sets up the potential showdown of 2 characters that even though we've never seen it before on screen, we know that it exists in some form or fashion. So to be able to set up all these things and to actually deliver on those things, deliver on the promise that was set up, to me felt very, very, very fulfilling. And not only that, it again just plays into the intricacy of Star Wars and how much depth there really is. And, a lot of people talk about Tatooine, too much Tatooine, but you really realize just how intricate and how pivotal this planet is to this entire universe. And it's not just about the core characters that we found out about in 6 or 7 movies. It's really about the entire universe. Like that planet, for whatever reason, is really pivotal to the universe itself. So I think that learning all of that and having that much pressure on it, and then introducing all these things around it to then support Boba Fett into the finale was the reason why I felt like it was such a strong episode.
Yeah, it built on what we already had. Then it set up some more stuff for the future. Do not eat pretzels when you're watching Book of Boba Fett. It's just going to make you even thirstier. All right, Ken, you got a quick final statement to support chapter 2.
Here's the thing about chapter 2. It's just this wonderful tone poem that can connect to your life, not just Star Wars. Adam's not wrong about chapter 6 connecting to the rest of Star Wars. I just, a lot of times now in my life, find Star Wars is my church. And I took a lot of inspiration and lessons from chapter 2, and that's why I love it.
All right, Adam, last word on chapter 6 goes to you.
Last word I would say is that whether or not you're a massive Star Wars fan, I think it's a very fulfilling experience. And I think seeing all these worlds collide and seeing all these new things pop up, I think it really just makes your intrigue grow immensely about the world of Star Wars. So I think it's a really good hook to get people even deeper into the lore. And on top of that, it's building up towards a really, really great finale.
Oh, this is going to be the whole show, isn't it? This is really tough. These were 2 great, just not even debates, because y'all were just stumping for your episodes. And that's, again, why we love celebrating and building up Star Wars. We don't want to be that kid that, again, if you're building sandcastles on Tatooine, you don't want to be the boy that's knocking them down. You want to help support. And so to make a decision here, it's a tough one, but I look at it like this, where the Book of Boba Fett, 2 and 6 are 2 of my favorite episodes as well. I think that the reason why 6 works so well is because even though we didn't get a lot of Boba Fett, we got so much of Boba Fett in episode too. And like Ken said, we really did get to explore that character because we wanted to know who this person was. At some point, you have to be more than just cool looking armor. And wow, did we get so much more of an emotional impact than I expected. And you talk about how cool Boba Fett looked, but we didn't really know him. I just thought the Tusken Raiders were just mean. They hit Luke and we're like, oh, I don't like them. And now I've come to love them. I want to join the tribe. I want to get in there. I want my own stick one day. And so as if you ever had a 4-second conversation with me, you know how much I love Luke Skywalker. But I'm going with Ken's argument here for chapter 2. So Ken gets the nod early and he is up in life. Well, we already knew that. And on this show, 1-0, which means that we go into topic 2, and that is going to be the best character. And for that, we go to Adam, who's looking to even up the scoreboard. Adam, round 2 is here, and your character for the best in Book of Boba Fett is?
This was an easy one for me. This is the titular character himself, Boba Fett, played by Tamara Morrison. For me, it was kind of everything that Ken explained in the last topic is kind of the reason why I chose Boba Fett. The fact that we had a character who was really nothing in the Star Wars universe. If you really boil it down, he was nothing. He was just a character who made a cameo. He looked really cool, and that was it. Through the Attack of the Clones and Clone Wars, we get a little bit more context, but now we get to see a character and in Mandalorian as well. Now we get to see a fully fledged character. We get to understand why Boba Fett is the way he is. You get little hints into his backstory, things that we hadn't seen before. But more importantly, we get to see what he goes through after he suffers something as traumatic as going through the Sarlacc pit. And I think that with the combination of what he goes through while he's living with the Tusken Raiders for 3-4 years, it's kind of unclear, but he learns so much about kindness and empathy and just understanding and an open-mindedness and a willingness to understand and a willingness to communicate, which is something that really, really surprised me because he's built up to be such a cold-hearted bounty hunter. To see him be empathetic and to see him embrace the Tusken culture and for them to embrace him, it really speaks to this character's willingness to go on a path of redemption, not just for himself, but also for everybody around him. He really dedicates himself to wanting to better the lives of everybody on Tatooine. Yes, Mos Espa firstly, but everyone else. And that includes trying to get rid of the Pike Syndicate. And I think that every episode that we see him in, there's more progress, more progress, more progress. The flashbacks support that. And so by the time you get to the end of the series, when he defeats Cad Bane, it's one of the most fulfilling moments of the first season. And I think one of the most fulfilling moments in Star Wars, because if you have that history and that knowledge with you, you know kind of what all that means. And it's such a great pivotal moment for him. And you cheer for a character that originally in the original trilogy, you probably wouldn't have done for. And I think that is a huge testament to the writing and the way that it's performed by Tamara Morrison in the intimate moments, the action moments, everything in between. So that's why Boba Fett was my number one guy.
It's a great point you bring up because like you're watching the show and I love that it doesn't give you a definite time frame on how long he is hanging out with the people of Tuscany, however Ken wants to say it. Was it a week? Was it a decade? But I don't need to know that. I just love how much they hung out. And Ken, there was a lot of hanging out because there's not a TV to watch. There's not a Starbucks to go to. Your favorite character? Are you taking somebody who's camping out? Or are you taking somebody who's more city bound?
Look, Mark, this is like a sports thing here. I'm up against a great defense, so might as well throw some Hail Marys. Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett. It's spectacular. Everything Adam's saying, I'm like, yeah, Adam's great. He's right. So I went with a Hail Mary of someone who I think kind of stole some scenes and connects to what the show was trying to do, and that is the wonderful Jennifer Beals. I'm a maniac, that's for sure, as Garsa Fwip, the owner and operator of the Sanctuary there on Mos Espa. One of the things that this show was trying to do is talk about these. They use Tatooine for this. They're trying to break this cycle. They're trying to break the cycle of pain, this underworld that's dominated, destroyed the communities of Mos Eisley, Mos Espa, Mos Pelgo, and Tatooine. And she represents that. She is Twi'lek, which is definitely has some associations in Star Wars with being a part of the slave trade, part of the pleasure trade, part of people, a people who don't have control of their own lives, don't have agency. We see great characters who've overcome that. Cham Syndulla, Hera Syndulla, but Garsa Fwip comes along and she isn't she's providing not just pleasure, not just distractions. She's providing a new way. And that all comes to a head for me with that great scene with Chrysanthemum, one of my favorite characters, show up in the show, and he's fighting drunk and he's fighting Trandoshans. Who hasn't done that at the comedy club in their life? And that great monologue that's turned into a great meme of just like, you were a great champion. You used to, people used to cheer for you to rip arms off, but that was the old way. This is the new way. And I really believe that's a theme in life and a theme in Star Wars. Don't fight change, find your place in change. And she represents that as the people of Tatooine all come together in Chapter 7 to break the cycle of pain and suffering that has been on Tatooine for generations. And so she represents a big core theme. Plus, she looks great in these wonderful Twi'lek outfits, these custom designed gowns and dresses. She's glamorous and wonderful. And that great line, "Hit it, Max." That is my favorite line of the series.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of folks watching the show had that same experience watching Book of Boba Fett, where it's like, hey, who is that? That look, oh my God, that's Flashdance. That's Jennifer Beal. Holy crap. And it's a great choice, as you said, not the titular character, but wow, what a scene stealer. So we go back to Adam to stump more for Boba Fett, who we know and now love.
Well, yeah, I would say that without Boba Fett, obviously the series doesn't work, right? Because he's the titular character. But more importantly than that, because I feel like that's an easy cop out, I think it's the emotional journey that the character goes on. And I think what his journey does for us as the viewer is at least for me, when I watched it, it allows for a lot of reflection of like change, pursuing change, openness to change, willingness to change. And I think that, again, was so surprising for me when it came to that character was the fact that this character is so open to change. And, Ken talked a lot about change and embracing change and those things like that. And the fact that he's willing to put his life on the line for the people of Tatooine when he really has no history with Tatooine as far as we know. It's very, very minimal from what we've seen. So the fact that he's kind of willing to put his neck on the line, mostly because of the Tusken people, like that's really the only thing that motivates him to want to protect and defend and fight for the people of Tatooine, are those moments. And those moments only work if you get to have those intimate episodes with Boba Fett and the Tusken people. So I think all those combinations are the reason why you stay, the whole reason why you constantly watch, the reason why you're invested in the character's story. And that's why ultimately, again, another reason for why I feel so connected to that character in this show.
It's a great message of embracing change here on this program. Nothing stays the same unchained. But Ken, as you mentioned, the first time we met Twi'leks in the classic trilogy, they were serving Jabba, either as the right hand or dancing for him and being Rancor bait. I mean, they really had a tough go of it. Garza trying to flip that script.
Yeah, and what happens is she dies. It's tragic. It's sad, and we don't know if Max Rebo does. That's the big mystery of the series here. But the astromech drummer droid does as well. Why that was important, why it drives home the fact that I thought she was my favorite character is it's the sanctuary. It is everything. It is the big stakes. And when it's lost and it's taken, and Boba Fett had told her, as long as I'm in control, I will protect you. And he fails to do that. I think it just drives a lot of the big points home. But again, we got Boba Fett petting a bantha going, make beautiful bantha babies. I'll take that moment almost over everything too. But Garza's whip is the heart of the series for me, what the series is trying to communicate.
I'm not going to lie to you, Adam. I was watching that episode where he said, go make bantha babies and set the bantha free. And I had Molly the Wonder Dog on my chair with me. And I was like, I ain't letting you go. You ain't making any babies. You're staying with Papa. Each one of you gentlemen get a final argument. I'm going to start with you, Adam.
Boba Fett riding a Rancor. Come on, man. Come on, man. That was like the chef's kiss moment of that series, was the fact that we had that build up with the awesome Danny Trejo as the Rancor Wrangler to finally say, like, I want to ride that bantha into battle. And for him to show up at the end, just all that weight, all that emotion, and all those things from the whole season of like the intensity, the emotion, the Boba Fettness, the way that he embraces all those things, and to finally see him now ride his battalion into battle, I was like, yeah, this worked for me. I'm in. Season 2, please. Thank you.
Ken, I can just see all these senior quotes right now. Boba Fett rode a Rancor. Adam Hlaváč. Ken, your final argument against the guy who rode the Rancor.
Yeah, Ranky the Rancor is one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. Now, look, one of the One of the things with Boba Fett is, Mark, like you and I, he's a very stoic guy. It's hard to get to know us, right? And I still felt at the end of the day, I still want to know Boba Fett. I want to sit down. He's so stoic. He's still withdrawn. He went on this wonderful journey, though. Garza Fwip wore everything on the sleeve. Plus, she also knows how to play the power game. Everything about her early on I didn't see her litter, all that kind of stuff, just created some great moments. She's memorable. She'll stand the test of time. Boba Fett will always be there. We now have Garza Fwip.
One of the really interesting aspects of the Book of Boba Fett, which I appreciate, is that, as we've already intimated on this show, is that not every episode made Boba Fett the focus. In some episodes, you didn't really see Boba Fett as much as you did other characters, and that's fine, and that's okay. And as much as people may say, well, why is it called the Book of Boba Fett? There's a lot of chapters in a book that don't all focus on whoever the book is named after, such as a Garza Fwip. But at the end of the day, the reason why we kept coming back and we're just glued to our TVs week after week is because we love the mystery. But now, as we start to peel back the layers of who Boba Fett really is, it just got more and more interesting. And like peeling an onion, Adam, it did make me tear up a few times. And so Adam and Boba Fett and the Rancor get the point here in round 2, and we are tied at 1 apiece. And so now we careen into a very interesting topic here. I love this because it is Star Wars, and we love celebrating what we are going to love and also what we already love. So the topic for round 3 is most surprising callback. Ken, I've seen you do stand-up comedy many times. You make a few callbacks into your set from time to time. In Star Wars, particularly the Book of Boba Fett, what was the most surprising callback?
I love callbacks. My election of 1912 humor is killing it. It's killing it out there right now. No, my favorite thing, my favorite callback, and it was really surprising in how much it was featured and seems to be like it's going to be featured going forward, is the N1 Naboo Starfighter from 1999. I do love my prequels. It was a long journey to get to that point. Like a lot of people my age, I rejected a lot of things about them early on. But one of the things I always loved was the design of the N1 Starfighter. I think a lot of people do love it. And to hear or to see, I should say, that it was back. That alone, it's cool. But then again, you're going to hear this from me all the time. What it represents this thing for Mandalorian about embracing the new and connecting with it. And his want is a new Razor Crest. And Pele's like, yeah, but give this Mustang a try, man. I'll fix it up nice. And I just love that sequence. And Bryce Dallas Howard directed the hell out of that sequencing. I got so much joy. I love the prequel generation. I am so thankful to them for keeping the flame of Star Wars alive when a lot of people in my generation wanted to stamp it out. And I think to see the N1 Naboo Starfighter flying across the sands of Tatooine was just beautiful. It was unexpectedly emotional. And I think, again, just the way it was shot, it was just surprising that the fact that an N1 Starfighter was there. All right, that's good enough. But the way it was featured, the way the joy of Star Wars just shot out of that Starfighter as it shot through the atmosphere and up into space. I loved every moment of it and can't wait to see more.
Yeah, anyone who badmouths the prequels, and I'm not the biggest lover of the prequels, but I will say, hey, you don't like the prequels? Then you have to wait another 16 years for new Star Wars, because that's what we all did. Not everybody was as lucky as Adam to be born late enough to get the re-releases, then just ride right into those prequels. So, Adam, your most surprising callback here, was it something from the prequels like Ken? Was it something from the classic trilogy or something off the board?
I also picked something from the exact same episode, the Boone to Eve classic pod race track from The Phantom Menace. That is, when I saw that moment, the hairs on my arm stood up. And it's really weird because I also I enjoy the prequels. I don't love them, but for whatever reason, my body kicked back into 1999 when I was 12 and I first saw that movie. And I felt like I was a kid in the theater watching something like unfold that was really, really special. And like Ken said, Bryce Dallas Howard did a phenomenal job directing that episode. But what I will say, that sequence doesn't work if you don't have the N1 Starfighter. And that was even cooler to me.
Did he take a kneel down?
he's not out of the game yet, but this is what happens when you get a bunch of us Star Wars honks in a room, when we all I don't want anybody to just look at a certain social media platform and say that's what Twitter debate is. I mean, there's a lot of it there, but then when you get into a room and you just start talking about Star Wars, there is so much love, and there's, hey, that's a great point, and so this might as well be the Star Wars barbershop and not Binge Battle here today. But I'll toss it back over to Ken, because Ken, Adam does love the Starfighter just like you do, and I imagine you also had some hairs on certain parts of your body stand up when you saw the classic track for the Boonta Eve Classic.
Well, Mark, as you know, I shave off arm hair for time, so you got to get the edge on the comedy stage. The Boonta Eve Classic's I love the pod race. It's so wild and crazy, and I would have loved a shot of memorial for Rats Tyrell. Rest in peace, Rats. I absolutely loved it. It was a joy to see that in a lot of ways, and it's not just simply about going back. Adam's not wrong when he says that. Hey, I felt like I was 12. I think sometimes people focus on that like we're stuck in nostalgia. It's not that. It's connecting to this primal joy that Star Wars can bring you if you're that kind of fan. For some people, they pass through the galaxy and it's okay. I think seeing the N1 Naboo Starfighter was some sort of confirmation for a generation of Star Wars fans that were told your Star Wars is less than, and to see it featured in such a way, as such a loving way by the creators. Doug Chiang, who was involved as one of the longest Lucasfilm employees, involved in the creation of a lot of the stuff in the Phantom Menace era, and now gets to do it again all these years later. Bryce Dallas Howard, part of that generation as well too. I mean, her father was going to direct episode 1 at one point, the rumor was, so to her to be able to just get back at it, her skills supersede any family name, by the way. I want her to direct Star Wars every time out. She's so great. It was just again confirmation of the love you had for this wonderful designed ship from these often maligned movies that still have the spirit of Star Wars in it. But that's why it worked for me.
Yeah, I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot more Bryce Dallas Howard in the Star Wars galaxy, assuming she survives that bout with dinosaurs, because I think she's battling a few really big ones, and I hear they can fly now, like Stormtroopers and Rise of Skywalker. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world of movies. But we go back to this streaming show for Adam Hlaváč's rebuttal. You saw that track for the first time, and you just got all the feels.
Yeah, and I think it's for a lot of the same reasons that the N1 Starfighter, you take something like the Boonta Eve Classic, or you take this pod race track, and I think it does validate a lot of the feelings that people had when they first saw episode 1 and loved it. And I think for the last 20 some odd years, there's been a lot of talk on the internet about people who say the prequels are such and such sort of movies. And at one point, just like they're trying to do with the sequel trilogy now, they're trying to pretend like those movies never existed. But I feel like if you really, truly want to love Star Wars, you have to embrace all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And for me, these types of callbacks, especially to something that was such a monumental piece of episode 1, not only from a storytelling perspective, but also technically for what it did in terms of the filmmaking and pushing filmmaking forward, you get to revisit this. And even though it's not a pod race, just the fact that you can see a location, you can see 2 rocks standing next to each other, and you know exactly where you are on Tatooine, and you know exactly what that represents. You know exactly what a canyon tunnel represents, and you know exactly how that made you feel when you first saw it. To me, that is like the power of, yes, nostalgia, but also revisiting things that made you really, really, really love Star Wars and just made you feel really fulfilled as a kid or a young adult or whenever you saw it. And just giving you a little piece of that history and telling you as the audience, hey, we also think that this is cool. And I loved that.
I feel like if you drop the 3 of us off anywhere on Tatooine, we've seen enough of the planet by this point. I think we know how to get around and figure out how to get to a watering hole. Just don't ask about safe transport to Alderaan. I don't want to be the one to break the news. Ken, your final argument when it comes to the Starfighter.
It comes down to this, Mark. By the way, I was worried this round that Hlaváč was calling for the spike, but looking for Mark Ingram in the corner of the end zone here. It comes down to this. It was Wizard.
Oh my God. That was the best.
Yeah. I like these mic drops that we're getting here, and that's a great Dan Marino reference too, Ken. Adam, your final take on either the pod race track itself or the N1 Starfighter. Have at it.
Look, they were both amazing. Like that whole sequence in and of itself was probably like one of the coolest moments in this first season. And I think they go hand in hand. And I think they just made my 12-year-old self feel so happy, so excited. And as someone who has probably spent more time defending the Phantom Menace than I probably need to on the internet, it just made that all those feelings more valid. And that's why I absolutely love that whole sequence.
I love what both of you are saying, especially about feeling like a kid again, because look, cigarettes are bad. The unfiltered ones are worse, but unfiltered joy, that's just good old fashioned. Give it all to me. And one of my favorite moments in Star Wars history is the trailer for Phantom Menace. And I know both of y'all share that sentiment as well. And the thing that you get this nice slow buildup with the classic music, and then boom, you're in the middle of a pod race. All of a sudden, you're like, what the hell is going on? So while for me personally, it was the actual pod race track that I glommed onto a lot more, hearing primarily Ken, but also Adam talk about how cool the N1 Starfighter is from Naboo. I do feel like that is the one that if I had to give the point with my head and not my heart, it goes to the author of Why We Love Star Wars, celebrating more reasons here today, Ken Napzok. So Ken goes up to 2-1 here, and Adam Hlaváč is fighting valiantly, and now he tries to stay alive for the sudden death round. Where we are is round number 4 for our next topic, and that is, what is the best cameo in the Book of Boba Fett? There were a lot of them. There are a lot of callbacks. There are a lot of great characters, but as far as the cameos go, gonna start with you here, Adam. Which one is the best?
There were so many juicy choices in this season, way more than I thought we were gonna get. I genuinely did not think we get as many. The biggest one for me that was my massive, sorry to do this to you, Christian, holy moment was the appearance of Cad Bane. That was one of the most left field things I never expected in a million years. And as someone who grew up watching Clone Wars, some of the references in some of the other books and in Rebels, to see that character actually step from animation into live action and for it to look seamlessly, pretty seamless to what it looked like in the animated series, was one of the most surprising and also nostalgic, at least for me, coming from the world of being a Star Wars fan. But I think even if you weren't a Star Wars fan, you are immediately intrigued by this cowboy who's coming across the desert with the sun behind him. And you're thinking, okay, who is this? What is this character? What is this character going to be about? And then he starts talking, and you don't even need to see his whole face. It's literally just Corey Burton's voice, and you're hooked. You're immediately hooked. And the fact that not only does this character show up in the second to last episode, but then also shows up in the finale. And the moment that he has with Boba Fett, they have multiple moments, but then the final moment where they finally face off, and you understand through the episode how deadly this character is, how lethal he is, and how he's willing to basically do anything for the job, for the spice. Like, that's really all his motivation is. And the fact that we get to have such an amazingly fulfilling moment with him and Boba Fett, and the buildup of that is so intense that your cheeks are tight when you're watching that episode, was so awesome and just so unexpected for me. And I loved seeing him show up in this show.
Yeah, we always talk about how Star Wars, it's cool because it feels like a Western. It's hard to get more Western than a character like Cad Bane. So, Ken, how do you counter? What is your best cameo in the Book of Boba Fett so far?
I mean, Cad Bane's one of my favorite characters. Give him the round. I'm kidding. I absolutely love Cad Bane. And there's so many choices. There's character cameos, and then there's this classic kind of actor cameo, and that happens a lot. I mean, Stephen Root showing up and asking for his stapler to be moved or returned is great. I went with Danny Trejo as the Rancor Keeper. Yeah, I would have loved Malakili there as well, the original Rancor Keeper. But here's the thing, that Danny Trejo would show up in a Robert Rodriguez directed episode is not a surprise. They're collaborators, they're family. That's not a surprise at all. But the use of Danny Trejo was beautiful. Again, talking about the court, he is this Rancor Keeper in this amazing scene with Boba Fett, someone who wants to change, but he's been raised in a certain way. He's gone through the galaxy thinking almost like he has to be something. And Danny Trejo comes along to say that what you are and what people think you are does not have to be who you are. And then he teaches him that through the Rancor, this creature that we all grown up that is slurping down Gamorrean guards, killing Ula, being a threat to Luke Skywalker. It's this monster. And here's Danny Trejo to say, no, that's what it looks like, but that's not who this creature is. You could be something else. In fact, the Boba Fett reacts to him like, this trained killer can feel. If he can feel, I can feel. Does that justify the way I am around? And to use Danny Trejo, who has this wonderful career. By the way, I'm a big fan of Trejo's Tacos, not a sponsor, but I'd like them to be for my life. Danny Trejo's whole career is, till he becomes kind of this pop culture phenomenon, he's playing certain roles. He's pigeonholed him to certain roles. This is someone who spent time in prison. This is someone who overcame addictions. He overcame a bunch of what's to be the who he wants to be. And I love Danny Trejo for that. So to use him in this scene, it was powerful, it was meta, and it was key to the maturation and journey of Boba Fett. It was my favorite cameo on so many levels.
Yeah, Danny Trejo still looking shredded. Meanwhile, he's getting meat chubby all around Los Angeles. He's got the taco joint. He's got the donut shop. But Adam, I could also say Cad Bane might be a fun purveyor of some sort of local Los Angelino food. I think I'd visit that restaurant.
No, I agree. And I think the thing with Cad Bane that is so intriguing, he offers an opportunity for audiences to want to dive deeper into the world of Star Wars. And I think when you do that, you unlock so many other things. Yes, you unlock the Pike Syndicate, but you can also unlock things like Crimson Dawn. You can also unlock his connection to characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi during the Clone Wars. Even now with series like The Bad Batch, like there's so many opportunities for Cad Bane to lead you through a rabbit hole that can really interconnect you through so many levels and so many eras of Star Wars. And I think the ability to bring this character to live action now, again, if you're kind of been a fan for all this stuff for the last 15, 20 years, you feel that fulfillment, you feel that joy, and you kind of feel like you've had this promise that was never promised to you directly fulfilled. And I think that to me was one of the coolest parts about that character. And the fact that he is also so unstoppable and also so sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? He's kind of unpredictable. Like you don't know what he's going to do. And I think if you are someone who likes the kind of unpredictable characters in a world where everyone kind of sometimes can seem like they're very, very predictable, you have this like cowboy from the West that you have no idea what he's going to do. I love that. That builds the intensity. And I think that makes the episodes inherently more intense, and it makes the stakes higher and higher. So you have to constantly ask yourself, well, how are the heroes of this story going to defeat someone who is so lethal and so heartless and so evil that they're willing to do almost anything to get the job done? And, I think that is on full display here with a character like Cad Bane.
Yeah, back a few years ago, Jon Favreau made a movie called Cowboys and Aliens. We could have just had Cad Bane give a TED talk. And that's, I would have paid $100 to see that, get a big bucket of corn, just listen to Cad Bane tell me, because it's a great story in Star Wars, but it's also an amazing behind the scenes story as to how Cad Bane just keeps hanging around. And now you get to see Cad in Book of Boba Fett. So Ken, let's talk a little bit more, because I see that you are on the wait list for adopting a Rancor. Was that the case before you met Danny Trejo's character?
Yeah, I have something close to Rancor. It's a Chihuahua male. They bite the same. Look, here's what I'll say. Again, I seriously love Cad Bane, and use of him is amazing. Cad Bane represents this idea of not changing. If Boba Fett doesn't change, he's Cad Bane until the bitter end. And I love that. But I think to get to that point, Boba Fett needs to learn that he can recode himself or rediscover himself. And that comes at this very core moment of him looking at this Rancor, who's still a vicious beast, who still needs to be feared and respected, who still can be violent if pushed, as we see. And Cad Bane is the one to push him there. So I just love those beautiful poetic moments to use Danny Trejo and his own life experiences as the Rancor keeper in this key scene for Boba Fett. I'll stand behind that. But man, I do love that Cad Bane duster.
All right. Now we come to your final arguments. Adam, go first with Cad Bane.
I would say Cad Bane is an opportunity to show you the potential of an expanded Star Wars universe. And I think it also shows you how someone as lethal as that character can even intimidate someone like Boba Fett, a character who we've spent so much time with trying to change throughout the series. And I think the perfect line delivery that I love so much is, "You've gone soft in your old age." And Boba says, "Well, we all do." And I just love the fact that these two are able to have that banter. And I think that is such a representation of what both of those characters represent, whether it's moving forward or it's kind of staying the way that you are. But I feel like Cad Bane is one of the only characters that could really put that pressure on Boba Fett and put that pressure on the series. And so I think that, along with the intensity of what that character does and how he just handles himself and presents himself, is the reason why he ends up being my favorite cameo.
Inspiring Boba Fett to pick up an M-Drive shake. All right, Ken, your final argument. Here you go. Stumping for Danny Trejo's Rancor keeper.
Look, if you're trying to be a vegan like me, Trejo's Tacos offers a jackfruit taco that is absolutely beautiful and tasty there. No, here, I just can't take away too much from Cad Bane because I love him so much, but I just love the idea of a cameo. It could be silly. It could be, why is that person there? It could be distracting. This one was beautiful, and it's a scene that deserves to be rewatched and reanalyzed time after time.
You know, you meet the Rancor Keeper and you're like, okay, who could possibly be tamed? Because at that point we have no idea what these beasts are capable of outside of Jabba's palace dungeon. And then you see, oh, Danny Trejo's the guy. Yeah, that guy can wrangle a Rancor. But then we meet the Rancors and it's like, oh no, I actually love you. You're intelligent. I want to imprint one too. But then you look at Cad Bane and you say, again, the story behind the scenes, where all due credit to all the great Star Wars canon that we got to celebrate in the 2000s, but it's almost more rewarding in a sense because you get to see Cad Bane, who was, maybe started out playing AA ball in the minor leagues and then get some run in a big time series like the Book of Boba Fett. And what an impression Cad Bane left. You put the fear of the Almighty into Boba Fett, it's certainly going to work for the viewing audience as well. So I'm taking Cad Bane here, and maybe Cad Bane can open a pizza joint here in Southern California. So that is the win for Adam, and now it's 2-2, and we are at that moment in Binge Battle where we go to a speed round sudden death finale. NFL, you're watching, each team gets the ball once, and so you're going to each get a minute to support your argument for whatever topic we have for sudden death, and it is... All right, you get to get in the conference room with a bunch of higher ups and pitch your show. Which character from the Book of Boba Fett deserves their own series? Ken, who's getting go picture? You go first.
I'll tell you, I'll give you a go picture here, Maki. We want to go with Enfys Nest and the Cloud Riders. Enfys Nest, portrayed by Erin Kellyman in Solo: A Star Wars Story, one of my favorite Star Wars stories. Absolutely love what she represents. She's a new face of the rebellion. The rebellion turns into a military operation at the time because it needed to, but it came from the people. Solo shows us the oppression of the Empire on the people and all those systems that said is enough. Enough is enough. One of my favorite moments is Enfys Nest taking her mask off, not in a fit of rage, in a fit of Braveheart speech. It's a sigh, because she's tired fighting and she needs help. That's why she reaches out to Tobias Beckett and Solo in the end and has that drink to solve it all. But you could also get into some wonderful things. Erin Kellyman's great. Number one, the design of Enfys Nest is cool, but also you could get into things that, motherhood. She has a relationship with her mother that we don't know much about. That seems where the legacy comes from. Star Wars is great in a lot of ways. It sometimes suffers in its analysis of mothers in Star Wars. Sometimes, like a lot of things, they're killed off for a plot point, and I would love to see that explored more, even though it does look like her mother dies. What's the relationship there? What's the legacy she's carrying on? How does she rally these systems? It is this Robin Hood type thing. Hyperfuel represents change. It represents hope. That's what she's fighting for. And I think hope is a core thing of Star Wars. Hope versus fear, and overcoming fear to find hope. That's Star Wars, and Enfys Nest represents that.
We got fear, we got hope, we got Ken Napzok. What more could you ask for? And Ken, with a great reminder to the audience and your simpleton host that you can take a character that doesn't necessarily have a big or any impression in the Book of Boba Fett. This is which character deserves their own spin-off series. So Adam, now it goes to you. The final argument of the day. Which character deserves their own spin-off series? Are you going with someone that we see in Book of Boba Fett?
I am, and I don't know if this is a reflection of how heartless and hopeless I am, but I'm going to go with Cad Bane because I think the thing that really intrigues me about that character, again, it's the fact that he is the greatest bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe. But I would love to know, how did he get to that point? How did he become the Cad Bane that we know? And I'm not necessarily talking about just doing a show that focuses on his story. Cad Bane is a character who's been interwoven through so much Star Wars history, through the Clone Wars, into the Rebels era, and now obviously into the Book of Boba Fett. There is so much that you can do with this character, from his interactions from characters like Anakin and Obi-Wan to Rebel, or to Darth Maul, and all these characters that we've come to love in Star Wars. So I feel like he presents a perfect opportunity where you can kind of walk through different eras of the universe and see how the criminal underground has changed and how being a bounty hunter has evolved through the different eras of Star Wars, from the Old Republic to the Age of the Empire. Obviously not much into the Age of the Resistance, because obviously he dies. But I still feel like there's like 30 years of so much great material that this character could be interwoven into and really tell the story from his perspective. So we get to understand a different part of Star Wars. I love the hopeful and sort of the bright-eyed Star Wars, but I also am super, super intrigued by Well, what is the dark side of Star Wars look like? Yes, we've explored some of it with the Empire and the First Order, but I really would love to get deep, 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 deep underground and almost go into like a very Western horror realm. And I feel like Cad Bane is the perfect catalyst to make that happen and to explore so many things that we never got to see, and all the other organizations that exist out there. Like I basically just want Narcos Star Wars, and I want Cad Bane to be the main character in it.
I was going to say, the way you're describing it, I could really see Karen Kusama doing something fun with the series like that. So
right.
Why do I smell a rematch with these two gentlemen once the Obi-Wan series comes out? I don't know. Maybe that's just my spidey sense going awry here. Well, I have to make a decision now, and this is going to determine the match. And again, this is why all the pressure falls on my shoulders, and that's why they're just so weary, because great, compelling arguments. We weren't even arguing. We were just celebrating all of the greatness that was the Book of Boba Fett, at least from my point of view. And so what it boils down to for me is this. I think Cad Bane is one of the most interesting characters. And what I love about Cad Bane is that you can utilize a Cad Bane like a Boba Fett, where it's a conduit to tell more folks' stories, where you have this starting point, but then you can branch out to all these different places. However, I feel like Cad Bane could make a really cool Logan-esque film, and I feel like the Enfys Nest hints that we got in Solo just open itself wide to a streaming series. And it's not just because I finished Yellow Jackets last night. It's also because I think Enfys Nest just goes so deep in showing us the hope of Star Wars. And I think sometimes we need the darkness, and sometimes we need to see that light as well. So by the thinnest of margins, I am going with Ken's streaming service. But Adam, I did give you your own movie with Cad Bane. So everybody parts with gifts. And the gift of all people watching today is the celebration of this thing we love called Star Wars. So I will start with our big winner here today. Ken, you wrote the book on Star Wars, literally Why We Love Star Wars. Where can everybody out there in the social media world find you?
First of all, I'm going to pray for Adam and his dark soul. There's some stuff on there, Adam. No, I love you. I love it so much. You can find me at Ken Napzok on my website, kennapzok.com. Like Mark said, when I'm not doing comedy on the road with that Mark guy, I'm hanging out playing rock music on Pop Rockin' Radio on Mixcloud.
All right, Ken, one word to describe your anticipation for the Obi-Wan series, having just seen that poster.
Excitement. Just no fancy words, just excitement.
That's a good word. All right, Adam, where can everybody out there check you out and all the great things that you are doing with Heroes Reforged?
All my social media is just my name, Adam Hlaváč, Twitter, Instagram. Heroes Reforged is the main channel that I'm doing reactions, like Mark said, reviews and all kinds of stuff. We're doing stuff every single week. We're doing reaction videos. We just finished up Boba Fett. We're going to be doing plenty of stuff for the rest of the year, including the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which, oh my God.
Your word is? I just hope that guy finds his industrial strength hair dryer, because that's what he was looking for. All right, that is going to do it for us here at Binge Battle. For Adam Hlaváč and Ken Napzok, our expert engineer, Christian Rubalcaba, his lovely dog, Draco, Molly the Wonder Dog, Baxter, everybody out there at Rotten Tomatoes, thank you all for watching here today. Do French fries belong in burritos? That's an argument we're about to have off air. Until then, I'm Mark Ellis, and we'll see you next time here at Binge Battle.